A gentleman and his automobile. Please subscribe and like this channel to receive new videos coming soon. I inherited my love for nice cars from my dad. In my early days, Dad was a Buick man. On many occasions, he would call my mom from the dealership, letting her know that he was trading her one-year-old car in on a brand new shiny Buick he just couldn't resist. I can't even tell you how many times that story was repeated. Dad branched out to new brands to include Metropolitan, Renault, Cadillac, Oldsmobile, Nissan, and then Mercedes. One Saturday, our family drove to Amarillo, Texas to pick up some supplies for the family business, and Dad saw a car he just had to have, so yes, we drove home in two cars that day. He once bought a Nissan Maxima because it looked like a Mercedes 300D, which is what he really wanted. That only lasted a few months, and he traded it in for a real Mercedes 300D. He just loved the sound and smell of diesel. He still had the Mercedes 300D when he passed away, so I bought it from my mom and drove it for years in my business. One lesson that I learned the hard way was in purchasing a car for my teenage daughter, Tara, who was always raised around nice cars. In a moment of total lapse in judgment, not only did I buy a car for Tara without having her involved in the purchase, but I bought a little red Nissan Sentra two-door cheap piece of junk car. I rationalized the purchase as being a reasonable acquisition. The car had been in a flood or something, and it smelled really bad on a hot day. What a bummer. I don't know if Tara ever drove that car even one day. When I told her I was writing a portion in the Man Gentleman book about cars and asked her if she had any memories about cars for me to put in the book, it took her less than a second to recall the dark day when I brought home the little red Sentra, even though it had been almost 25 years since that fateful day. Since that mess-up, she did have some cool cars that bring fond memories. Eventually, I sold the 300D to a trusted business associate, Dwight Pillow. After almost a decade, Dwight offered to give me back the car if I would just come get it. I quickly picked up the 300D and started a full restoration. Later, I had a strong prompting that I wasn't a good steward of the 300D and it was time to give it away. My son John was living in Atlanta with his family and we shipped the 300D to him. He drove the car for many years until the Classic was just too costly for a daily driver. Several years later, John said he wished he had the 300D back. Just lots of good memories. One of my dad's requirements was that the cars be kept clean. There was no excuse for a dirty car. All our cars had to be kept clean inside and out. Purchasing one of the local car washes would have saved the family money in the long run. Dad believed that every family should have an air compressor and a large car vacuum cleaner, two essentials for keeping a car in tip-top shape, and use them on a regular basis to keep the car clean and in proper order. To this day, I try to vacuum my cars out on a weekly basis. One last car story, my Uncle Bob Phillips, Uncle Bo as he was called by our family, was always my favorite uncle. While growing up, I would usually spend a week or two with him and Aunt Patsy in the summer. Uncle Bo had several Exxon service stations in Dallas and Euless, Texas. One summer, I was working at his station and he had Aunt Patsy's car in the service bay. He told me he was giving her a surprise. Aunt Patsy was one of those front seat, back seat drivers. Often when he was driving, she would reach over from the front passenger seat and honk the horn at another motorist. Drivers that were slower than her would get the nudge of a honking horn. Uncle Bo said he was having another horn button installed on the floor on the passenger side of her car. When he was driving, she could now honk the horn with her foot from the passenger side of the car. Get this picture. We are riding in the car, and as he pulls up to a traffic light behind other cars, when the light turns green and the cars in front don't immediately move out, my aunt starts pressing the new horn button with her foot. Uncle Bo could always hold both hands up in the air to signify to the other motorists that he wasn't honking the horn. The following are some very practical points for a gentleman to remember when caring for or operating his car. A gentleman should have a car that is a reasonable representation of his position. A gentleman's primary car should be a four-door vehicle whenever possible to accommodate the shared transportation needs of others. A gentleman's car should always be washed and waxed. A gentleman always keeps his car's interior clean with carpets vacuumed. A gentleman should keep a small spray bottle of air freshener in the car at all times. Use it sparingly but often. A gentleman is very discriminate in how he uses his car horn. A gentleman always yields to others and uses his turn signals every time. When a gentleman borrows a friend's car, he always takes it back promptly and filled with gasoline. A gentleman always obeys the posted speed limits. A gentleman parks his car carefully, attempting to never bump another person's vehicle. If he scratches another's vehicle, he leaves a thoughtful note, taking on the responsibility of his actions and leaves contact information. Please click subscribe and like this channel to receive more new videos coming soon.